What if the problem isn't that you're bad with money, but that the game you're playing was never designed for you to win? At first, that sounds unlikely, because if you look at your life from the outside, everything seems reasonable. You followed the expected path. You got an education. You found a stable job. You earn a decent income. You're not making reckless decisions. You pay your bills on time. You're aware of your spending. You try to be responsible. And yet, there's a quiet feeling that doesn't really go away, the sense that no matter how much you earn, it never fully translates into progress. You're not struggling, but you're also not moving forward in a meaningful way. You're stable, but not free. And over time, that creates a kind of confusion, because logically, things should be improving. If your income increases, your financial situation should improve with it. But in reality, something else happens. Your income goes up, and so does everything around it. Your expectations adjust, your lifestyle improves, your definition of what feels normal quietly shifts. So instead of creating distance between you and financial pressure, you just move that pressure to a higher level. Now let's make this more concrete. Imagine someone in their late 20s living in a typical US or European city. They earn around $75,000 a year. On paper, that's solid. But after taxes and deductions, that becomes roughly $4,200 per month. Now life begins to take shape around that number. Rent takes $1,600. Not luxury, just a decent apartment in a safe area, reasonably close to work. Then comes the car, a $450 monthly payment, another $200 for insurance. Student loans take about $350. Groceries are around $400. Utilities, phone, and internet add another $300. At this point, before anything discretionary, about $3,300 is already committed, and nothing here stands out as excessive. This is what a normal, responsible adult life looks like. Then come the smaller, less noticeable expenses. Occasional dinners out, streaming subscriptions, clothes, weekend plans, maybe a short trip here and there. Individually, they feel minor. But together, they quietly add another $700 to $900. So by the end of the month, there isn't much left. Some months you save a little, other months you don't save at all. And when something unexpected happens, you adjust and move on. Not because you're careless, but because everything about this setup feels justified. And that's the important part. Nothing here feels like a mistake, which is exactly why this situation is so common and so rarely questioned. If you look at that situation closely, nothing stands out as obviously wrong. There's no single decision you can point to and say, that's the mistake. And that's what makes this so difficult to notice, because the system you're operating in doesn't rely on big, visible errors. It works through small, reasonable decisions that feel completely justified at the time. The structure behind all of it is simple. Everything is framed in terms of monthly affordability. When you chose your apartment, the question wasn't, is this the best long-term financial decision? It was, can I afford $1,600 a month? When you got your car, the question wasn't, is this worth $40,000 over time? It was, can I manage $450 a month? The same applies to almost everything. Phone plans, subscriptions, furniture, even travel. Each decision is presented in a way that makes it feel small, contained, manageable, and most of the time, it is, at least in isolation. But when you start stacking these decisions together, something changes. Your income doesn't disappear all at once. It gets divided into pieces, allocated across multiple commitments that all seem reasonable on their own. And before you realize it, most of what you earn is already assigned before the month even begins. Now let's slow this down and actually look at the math. that $450 car payment feels harmless. But over 5 years, that's $27,000. Add insurance at $200 a month. That's another $12,000. Fuel and maintenance can easily add $8,000 to $10,000 more. So in total, you're looking at roughly $45,000 to $50,000 tied to that one decision. Not paid in a single moment, but spread out in a way that makes it feel invisible. Now apply the same thinking to your apartment. Let's say you chose a place that's $400 more expensive than a simpler option. That difference doesn't feel significant month to month, but over a year, it's $4,800. Over 5 years, $24,000. Over 10 years, close to $50,000. Over 10 years, close to $50,000. And unlike an investment, that money doesn't grow. It doesn't come back. It simply maintains a certain level of comfort. Now combine multiple decisions like this across your life. The slightly better apartment, the financed car, the recurring subscriptions, the everyday conveniences. Each one is small enough to justify, but together they form a structure that absorbs nearly all of your income. And because everything is broken into monthly amounts, you never fully see the total cost. You experience your finances in short-term cycles, month to month, payment to payment, which makes everything feel under control, even when, in the long term, it's not moving you forward at all. So the issue isn't that you're spending irresponsibly. It's that the system encourages you to evaluate decisions in fragments instead of seeing the full picture. And when you only see the fragments, everything looks affordable. At this point, the pattern is clear. But understanding the numbers isn't enough, because this isn't just a financial issue, it's a psychological one. The reason this system works so effectively is because it aligns perfectly with how people naturally think. We don't experience money in long-term totals. We experience it in short-term comfort. If something fits into our monthly budget, it feels safe. It feels controlled. It feels like a decision we can handle. And that feeling is powerful because it removes friction. It allows you to move forward without hesitation. But it also hides something important. The true cost of a decision isn't the monthly payment, it's the long-term commitment attached to it. And most people never fully feel that commitment. They only feel the present version of it. Now layer in identity, because spending isn't just about utility. It's also about how you see yourself. Your apartment reflects your progress. Your car reflects your success. Your lifestyle reflects where you believe you stand in life. So over time, your financial decisions stop being purely logical. They become emotional signals, not extreme emotions, just subtle ones. A sense of moving forward, a sense of keeping up, a sense of not falling behind. And that's where the trap deepens, because once your lifestyle becomes tied to your identity, reducing it doesn't feel like a financial adjustment. It feels like a personal step backward. Moving to a cheaper apartment doesn't feel efficient. It feels like losing progress. Driving a simpler car doesn't feel practical. It feels like lowering your standard. So even when you recognize financial pressure, you don't easily change direction. You adapt around it. You budget tighter. You delay saving. You tell yourself things will improve with the next raise. And sometimes they do. But here's what usually happens instead. Your income increases, and your lifestyle adjusts again. Slightly better choices, slightly higher standards. Nothing dramatic, just enough to absorb the difference. Now extend this pattern over 10 or 15 years. You're earning more than you ever have, but your financial position hasn't changed as much as you expected, because instead of building assets, you've built obligations, higher fixed expenses, more commitments, more reliance on steady income, which leads to a quiet but important shift. Your life becomes less flexible over time, not more. You need your job more than before. You have less room to pause, change direction, or take risks. And this is where people start to feel stuck. Not because they made a clear mistake, but because they followed a path that gradually reduced their options. They built a life that looks stable from the outside, but underneath, it requires constant maintenance. And once you reach that point, changing direction feels harder than continuing, even if continuing isn't taking you where you actually want to go. So if most people get stuck, how do financially intelligent people navigate this differently? The key difference isn't necessarily that they earn dramatically more. It isn't that they have insider knowledge or extraordinary luck. It's that they play a different game entirely. They don't measure financial success by what they can afford this month or by the visible markers of status around them. They measure it by freedom, flexibility, and long-term control. When they consider a purchase, they don't start with, "Can I pay $450 a month?" They start with, "What is the total cost over time? And what old I do with that money instead?" That simple mental shift changes every decision. A car isn't just a monthly payment. It's a multi-year commitment that could affect everything else in life. A slightly nicer apartment isn't just about comfort. It's a fixed expense that limits future choices. They see these things not as harmless, neutral decisions, but as obligations that carry consequences stretching years into the future. They also think in terms of margin of cash, margin of time, and margin of options. Where most people tie every extra dollar to lifestyle, they preserve it. They resist the subtle pressures to upgrade simply because it fits their income. They understand that each additional fixed expense decreases flexibility, and flexibility is the core of financial freedom. This doesn't mean they live austere or joyless lives. They just choose consciously what to invest in and what to maintain, rather than automatically elevating their standard of living every time their paycheck grows. And the impact over time is profound. While others steadily increase their commitments alongside their income, financially intelligent people allow their income to create optionality. They can invest more, save more, and take calculated risks that others can't because their money isn't already absorbed by commitments. Over a decade, that difference compounds quietly but dramatically. A consistent approach to preserving financial freedom ends up building real wealth, often without anyone noticing it on the surface, because it isn't flashy or status-driven. This is the essential perspective shift. Success isn't measured by appearances or by the lifestyle you can afford. It's measured by the choices you preserve for the future. By understanding this, you start to see why even responsible, disciplined people can feel stuck. It isn't laziness, ignorance, or lack of self-control. It's the system itself, the invisible rules of monthly affordability and lifestyle creep that most people never question. So maybe you're not bad with money. Maybe you've just been playing by the wrong rules. Rules that prioritize comfort over freedom, status over options. Recognizing that is not a failure, it's clarity. And clarity is the first step toward a financial life that feels less like constant maintenance and more like intentional progress. If this perspective gave you a new way to think about your own financial situation, consider subscribing. There are more calm, realistic breakdowns like this that can help you see the full picture, not just monthly numbers, but the long-term game you're really playing.